Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on the PHS 2018 Performance Appraisal Process. I'm Anthony Petrarca, Pioneers Training Manager, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about our webinar platform to help you get through our session today. First off, everyone has been placed on mute. This is just to help with our sound quality. But a little later in the presentation, I'm happy to take people off mute to ask questions. But I believe we are going to hold off on questions until the end of the presentation. That will make it a little bit simpler. If something comes up for you that you have to get a message to us, you may use the chat box. You'll find the chat box located on the right-hand side of the screen towards the bottom. If you don't see that sidebar, you'll probably see a little red arrow or another arrow pointing left. Just click on that and it should open up for you. And then towards the bottom, it will say chat. And if it's not open, click on the plus sign and that will open. And you can type in there and we will get your message. So with that, I am going to turn things over to Paul Caddy to lead us through our material today.
Hello, and welcome to this review of the 2018 Performance Appraisal Process. I'm an HR business partner for those of you that don't know me, and I'll provide the tutorial on navigating the performance appraisal process. I hope after the presentation you'll easily be able to understand how the performance appraisal process works for us here, how you start the process. We'll identify the tools and documents necessary to assist you in the appraisal review discussion and easily complete the appraisal form. Note that you should have received the manager guidelines for employee performance appraisal, which covers much of the information in this presentation. This document is for leadership only and should not be distributed to others. If you've not received that, please send me an email and I will send that to you. You also have access to the performance appraisal form on Pioneer, which includes directions for the completion right on the form. Let's discuss the objectives of a performance appraisal. Performance appraisals and goal setting are key parts of any performance management system. It can be extremely effective as long as both the leader and the employee openly and honestly engage in the process. Employees, leaders, and the organization as a whole benefit from this process. Communicating expectations and providing clear goals positively impacts employee performance. It sets employees up for success early on by letting them know what's expected of them. This ensures the employee and the supervisor have their eye on the same target and makes employees feel supported and see how their individual contributions help the organization meet its overall goals and objectives. Leaders benefit from the process too. Engaging in this process early allows supervisors to identify underperformers and eliminate them more quickly. Clearly communicating goals and expectations saves time and reduces conflict, ensures efficiency and consistency in performance. The process requires documentation of the employee's work record, which makes completing the annual appraisal quick and easy. This process also leads to overall improved organizational performance, and employees feel recognized for their contributions when they're rewarded for good performance, which leads to increased job satisfaction and employee retention. Let's take a look at some of the essentials of a performance management. During each review period, leaders should keep an ongoing work record for each employee. It serves as a reference by capturing the highlights as well as areas that need improvement over the review period. The review is the leader's opportunity to assess and clearly communicate the employee's success in achieving the goals and job performance over the last year. It's also a chance to identify any critical areas of growth and opportunities for the employee and creates the groundwork for the next year by identifying the new goals. The 2018 appraisal can be located on Pioneer by clicking on the Forms and Documents, and then clicking on the Performance and Discipline, and lastly clicking on the Annual Performance Appraisal. Please don't put appraisal in the search box, as we have some links out there that we are trying to remove, but I'm not sure they're gone and they may take you to another form. You know you are on the right appraisal form when you see the title of our appraisal form is 2018 Performance Appraisal at the top. The 2018 appraisal form has been updated and simplified. Please make sure you're using that form. You will notice there are half-point ratings, specifically 2.5 or 3.5. These should be assigned if performance fell between the two ratings according to the rating scale. You will assign 2 ratings for each employee, one for overall performance, which accounts for 50% of the performance review, and one for goals and expectations, which accounts for the remaining 50%. The form will automatically average the 2 ratings and populate the final rating in the overall appraisal score box. Now, we did have some issues with that calculation last year, so if you should notice any issues with that when you're done, please let us know immediately that you're having issues with that box. Our rating scale. A 1 to 5 rating scale and the corresponding definitions are provided to help determine the appropriate rating for both sections. Remember, the form will automatically average the ratings. To complete the first section on overall position, you'll need to reference the 2018 employee or leadership competency definitions as well as the employee's job description. Now, those definitions are also in the same place that you found the appraisal form on PINET under performance forms. To complete the second section on goals and expectations, you need to reference each employee's goals that he or she listed on the 2018 expectations form. Keep in mind these things when you're rating your employees. Hopefully, most of your employees are fully functional in their role and they're meeting their job expectations. This is certainly what we expect and is completely acceptable to be rated a 3. This rating indicates average performance, and most of your employees will fall into this category. Inevitably, a small portion of your employees are likely to be below average performers and may be given a rating between 1 to 2.5. Having underperformers is certainly not ideal, but should be expected, and it's critical to include the justifications for those in the comment sections, including specific reasons for any rating below a 3. Please use clear examples to emphasize how the employee excelled or fell below, and ensure your examples cited occurred within the review period. Similarly, a small portion of your employees are likely to be above average performers and may be given a rating between 3.5 to 5. A 5 rating indicates exemplary performance and is unusually rare. That's because it implies there's no room for improvement, which is almost never the case. However, if you firmly believe an employee meets this criteria, you should have the appropriate documentation to support this rating. You'll find that employee ratings will be normally distributed or follow a bell curve, which means the majority of the ratings will be in the average range with only a few ratings above or below average. And please keep these things in mind when evaluating performance. Do not fault the employee if the goals were not reached due to budget constraints, or if goals were not reached due to a project cancellation. If a majority of goals were met successfully, the manager has the ability to assign either a 2.5, meets most expectations, or a 3, meets expectations. Please use discretion here by considering the importance of goals which were not met, which should sway your rating. As mentioned previously, you'll need to reference the 2018 employee and leader competencies when completing your employee appraisals. Competencies are the skills we expect employees to possess in order to perform successfully, and we have a set of competencies for employees and a set for leaders. The 2018 employee competencies are customer focus, communication, punctuality, ethics, and integrity. Which competencies an employee is expected to possess depends upon the position. The level of mastery we'd expect in each competency is also dependent upon the position. Communication, for example, is a common competency, and most organizations find this desirable, but the level of expected mastery of this competency might vary between positions. For example, the level of mastery for a lead employee versus a communication manager who's responsible for crafting communications among various medias to be suitable for broad audiences. Dependability, another commonly desired competency. Dependability is another way to reference punctuality for both hourly and salaried employees. However, attendance is tracked and addressed differently for hourly versus salaried employees. and managing excessive absenteeism through progressive discipline is appropriate for hourly employees, but typically not appropriate course of action for salaried employees. However, the expectation for dependability among the two might vary. For example, an hourly employee may be tardy to work and hold up production or cause staffing shortages that cause another employee to miss their breaks. A salaried employee might be late for every scheduled meeting or not attend the required monthly meetings, which makes collaboration across cross-functional teams difficult. Now let's look at the leader competencies. As you can see, there are some overlap with a few additional competencies which are expected of leaders. We'd expect everyone to be highly competent in the area of ethics and integrity. However, leaders are expected to have a higher degree of competency here. The higher the position in the organization structure, the higher the degree of ethics and integrity required. Leaders are required to be knowledgeable on laws and regulations and are responsible for ensuring their employees remain compliant and are doing the right thing. Prior to getting started, you should gather all applicable documents from the past year and review them. There are many things you need to have on hand to complete the form, including your notes from any verbal discussions over the review period, a copy of the employee's job description, written documentation of successes in areas that need improvement, performance improvement plans if you had any, 2018 goals and expectations, any written warnings, productivity reports, metrics, etc. You may find it helpful to create a folder on your personal drive or an online folder in Outlook to house the notes and documents for each employee to easily reference and track performance data. Once you're ready to begin filling out the appraisal form, you can copy and paste certain sections from the 2018 expectations form to save time. For instance, you can copy the goals section of the 2018 expectations form and paste it into the 2018 appraisal form. Be sure to add examples with as much detail as possible and clearly indicate whether a goal was attained or not and to what degree. It's critical the appraisal is based on facts, citing metrics whenever possible. Remember, the appraisal is only covering performance and expectations for 2018. So you should be specific about actions and projects in 2018 that contributed to the assigned rating. You can cite examples for clarity during the review, and again, be sure to indicate if goals were attained and to what degree. Write the reviews with objectivity and rate employees based on observed performance indicators, rather than personal feelings or bias about employees. We need to avoid the halo effect, only recording positive things. Even a great employee usually has room to grow. Also, we're doing a disservice to employees by not mentioning areas that need improvement. There is a responsibility of leadership, and it will help the employee succeed in the future. Examples of actual demonstrated performance are the best way to express both the good and the not so good areas of performance, so use the phrase, for example, to reference actual situations. Documentation of employee performance reinforces the objectivity of the review. Avoid comments regarding protected action areas such as FMLA and ADA issues, using accrued sick time, having approved intermittent leave, or you didn't help me during an emergency because you couldn't miss church. These are protected by federal, state, or local laws and should not be factored into the appraisal. Leaders are responsible for fairly evaluating employee performance and providing an appraisal that's thorough and thoughtful. Make sure you allow yourself enough time to complete performance appraisals to avoid rushing through them. Employees deserve a quality appraisal. One tactic is to start with your underperformer appraisals, as these are often the most difficult and require the most time to complete. Once those are out of the way, you may find that completing the remainder of the appraisals is easier. Remember, the appraisal is not the time to introduce any new performance issues to the discussion. Conversation with the employee should summarize discussions and feedback that occurred throughout the year. There should be no surprises at appraisal time. Be sure to leverage your HRBP as needed when writing your employee performance appraisals. The mark of a good performance management system is that it promotes consistency and clearly tells a story about employees' performance. You can review past appraisals and comment on recurring issues to create vertical consistency. Most likely, employee performance will be consistent with the previous year, but it's not always the case. Review the prior appraisal so that any changes in ratings can be explained away. If an employee had favorable rating previously but is not currently, you should try to explain this. For instance, is the employee new to the role, or was new software implemented recently and the employee has struggled to use it? Performance is measured by comparing the results achieved against the set expectations and the level of mastery for core competencies, along with performance of general duties and tasks as listed in the job description. As long as the same methodology is used, we should see horizontal consistency. This is when employees with similar performance issues receive similar performance ratings, not just in your unit, but across the organization. Your HRBP can provide copies of previous appraisals if we have them, but remember you're appraising only this past year. You might question whether it's appropriate to complete appraisals for certain employees. For instance, an employee who has moved to a new role or changed managers within 60 days of the appraisal. That would be November 1st or later. In both cases, the former manager is responsible for writing and delivering the review based upon the employee's former position. People that have moved mid-year, it would be the new supervisor's responsibility to get with the previous supervisor for their input, but the actual appraisal would be written by the new supervisor, and the rating is responsibility of the new supervisor. The PHS system requires the employee's immediate supervisor to write the performance appraisals and then forward them to the next level leader to review and suggest edits. We call them the reviewers. Reviewers help ensure the appraisal is descriptive, accurate, and fair. Reviewers are also responsible for ensuring consistency across the units they oversee. Their signature on the appraisal indicates they fully approve the contents and rating. If they don't agree with the content or rating, they should refer back to the immediate supervisor to discuss the concerns and request appropriate edits. Now let's discuss corrective action plans. Employees with a score of 2 or below in any section must follow a corrective action plan, or CAP for short. Please don't drag out corrective action plans. They need to be direct and concise, usually completing within 60 days. If the issue is addressed during the year through discipline, you should note this in the CAP, specifically which level of discipline was issued and the stated expectation moving forward. You should note any changes each time you meet. Please make sure you're diligently reviewing these plans on a consistent basis with the employee up until the CAP completion date. Don't sign off on an issue being completed satisfactorily if it isn't. In reviewing annual appraisals over multiple years, it's common to see the same areas of improvement mentioned. This is not fair to the employee or to the company. If it's not corrected, you should consider disciplinary action during the year, not just a lower rating at the end. Or maybe the issue isn't as important to you or to the position as you previously thought. Should it still be considered? At some point, if performance is consistently low, especially in the same areas year after year, you are responsible for managing the employee out of that position. Ideally, there may be another position in the organization that better utilizes the employee skill sets to which they can transition. You may set interim reviews as often as you like during the year. Roughly every 2 to 4 weeks is ideal. You should review employee progress on each goal and competency, and if necessary, you can further define goals or modify the timeline. Most important, you need to assign new goals as previous ones are achieved. There should always be a goal which an employee is working towards. Remember to monitor performance to ensure previously met goals are maintained. Although interim reviews are not scored, you should document the progress in conversation to assist you at the end of the year when completing appraisals for 2019. These meetings can be informal. Just be sure you notate the progress you're providing, documented feedback for the employee. An email to the employee summarizing your discussion is enough to document this occurred. I am not going to demonstrate this, but you can create the subfolders on your S drive, if your S drive is your personal drive, for all your employees, and then employee folders under that. or you can make your Outlook files. We do expect folks to be keeping copies of expectations, appraisals, year to year, so that you have those for comparison. Since we're dealing with paper, it's much harder and there's a lot more work involved calling back and forth to scan documents or send documents back and forth. Critical review dates. Appraisals need to be submitted for review by January 25th and approved by reviewers by February 8th. Appraisal discussions with employees occur in early March after the senior leadership team and HR have reviewed and approved appraisals. You may begin scheduling meetings with your employees after you receive confirmation from Human Resources to proceed. HR is available to review expectations prior to presenting to employees. HR does not require your supervisor to review expectations prior to presenting to your employee, but you do need to check with your supervisor to see if your division has a different practice, or if they have a different set of goals and strategic goals for 2019 that they want you to focus on. You will submit to HR the signed 2018 goals. It should be the signed 2019 goals at the same time you submit the signed 2018 appraisal. Deadlines are subject to change, and you will be notified of any changes. This is the end of the presentation. I hope you found it useful and informative. You can review it as often as you'd like, and I believe it's supposed to be posted out there. If it is not, and you'd like a copy, just email me and I'll send you a copy of the presentation. As always, consult with your immediate supervisor or HRBP if you have any questions or require any assistance. All tools and references for this process are posted on PINet under the section we talked about. Thanks for taking the time to review the presentation. Now, does anybody have questions?
So what I'm going to do, Paul, is I will take everybody off of mute so you can ask questions. It may be helpful, however, if you put your own phone on mute so that we can avoid any kind of noise or feedback. So,
Are you there?
okay, everybody's off of mute now. If you have a question, feel free to ask. But again, you may want to put yourself on mute just to avoid the kind of feedback we're hearing now.
Anybody?
What if the employee was not given goals at the beginning of the year? How do you rate that?
Well, then you would use their job description and the competencies, and that's really all you could do. So I would give them one rating that you are scoring for the goals and competencies, put the other rating in the other box because they didn't have any goals and expectations. Does that make sense? We have a lot of people in that position this year. So if you didn't have goals and expectations, we don't want you to have a blank box that we're dividing in two. So you'll just be, rating their competencies and how well they're following the job description we set for them, the tasks listed there, and then put that same score in the goal box. Make sense?
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, are you sure? Should I give you another minute to think of it? You can always send emails to your HRBP or me. Let us know if there's any glitch in the process. Don't be afraid to ask questions, especially if you're new to PHS or new to the process. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.